The distress call. The warning alarm screamed through the mining colony on Velon 7. Ven pressed his three-fingered hands against the control panel, his blue skin turning pale with fear. Through the view screen, he watched the black ships descend from the sky like hungry predators. "They're here," whispered Mora, his second in command. "The Craven have found us." Ven had heard the stories. Every peaceful species in this sector knew about the Craven raiders. They came without warning, took everything, and left only death behind. His people, the Terek, were simple miners and traders. They had no weapons, no defenses against such brutality. The first explosion shook the ground. Screams echoed through the communication channels as the Craven began their attack on the outer settlements. Ven watched in horror as families ran for shelter that would not save them. "Send the distress signal," Ven ordered, his voice trembling. "Send it to everyone. Anyone who can hear us." Mora's hands moved quickly across the controls. "Sir, most species won't respond. We're too far from the core worlds. And those who might come, they'll arrive too late." Another explosion. Closer this time. The building shook and dust fell from the ceiling. "Just send it," Ven said quietly. "We have to try." The signal burst outward into the void of space, carrying with it images of the destruction, the coordinates, and a simple message: "Help us, please, anyone." 3 days' travel away, aboard the human patrol ship Frontier Watch, Lieutenant Tom stared at his console with wide eyes. "Captain James, you need to see this," he called out. Captain James walked over, still holding his coffee. He was a tall man with graying hair and tired eyes that had seen too many patrols along the frontier. "What have you got, Tom?" "Distress signal, sir. Alien origin. The translation matrix is working on it now." Tom pressed a button and the view screen filled with images that made James forget all about his coffee. Burning buildings, bodies in the streets, families huddled in terror while dark figures moved through the smoke with weapons raised. "Location?" James asked, his voice cold and steady. "Velon 7, mining colony. The attackers are Craven according to the signature. The victims..." Tom paused. "The database says they're Terek, peaceful species. No military to speak of." James set down his coffee cup with careful precision. "Get me command, now!" Within minutes, the face of Admiral Robert appeared on the screen. The Admiral was an older man with a scarred face and steel-gray eyes that missed nothing. "I saw the signal, James," Robert said before the captain could speak. "You want permission to respond?" "Yes, sir." "The Craven are raiders, Captain. They're not formally at war with anyone because they hit and run before help arrives. If we intervene, we're making a statement." James met the Admiral's gaze without flinching. "With respect, sir, since when do humans ignore distress calls?" A thin smile crossed Robert's face. "That's what I wanted to hear." "Permission granted. I'm sending you support. 3 Dreadnoughts are being diverted to your location. Commander David will lead them. You'll coordinate the rescue. 3 Dreadnoughts, sir. For a pirate raid? We don't do anything halfway, Captain. And besides," Robert's smile turned cold, "it's time the galaxy remembers why they should be careful around Earth." Robert out. On Velon 7, the situation had gone from bad to worse. Half the colony was in flames. The Craven had rounded up survivors in the central plaza, forcing them to their knees while the raiders sorted through their victims like merchandise. Ven knelt among his people, feeling Mora trembling beside him. Above them, a Craven warrior walked past, his red eyes scanning the prisoners with cold amusement. The Craven were massive creatures nearly twice the height of a Terek, with thick gray skin and muscles built for violence. "No one answered your call," the Craven said in broken Galactic standard. He laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "No one coming. You die alone." Ven closed his eyes. The Craven was probably right. They were too far from help, too unimportant for anyone to risk their forces. The distress signal had been a desperate hope, nothing more. Then the sky changed. It started as a shimmer like heat waves in the air. Then 3 massive shapes tore through space itself, emerging from hyperspace jumps with a sound that rolled across the planet like thunder. Ven looked up, his mouth falling open. The ships were enormous, each one larger than the entire Craven raiding fleet combined. They were built like weapons themselves, all angles and armor plating, bristling with gun batteries that could level a city. "What is that?" Mora whispered. The Craven warriors had stopped moving. Even they seemed stunned by the arrival of these massive vessels. Their commander, a scarred veteran named Rax, stormed forward and stared up at the newcomers. "Identify yourselves," Rax roared into his communicator. The response came in a language that the translation matrix struggled with at first, then clicked into clarity. The voice was calm, almost casual, but there was steel underneath it. "This is Commander David of the Earth Navy, commanding the Dreadnoughts Titan, Hammer, and Retribution. We received a distress call from this location. Stand down immediately and prepare to be taken into custody." Rax bared his teeth in what might have been a smile. "Earth? Never heard of it. This is Craven territory now. Leave or we'll add your ships to our collection." There was a pause. Ven held his breath. Then Commander David spoke again, and this time his voice had changed. It was no longer casual. It was the voice of someone who had made a decision and would not be moved from it. "You have 10 seconds to begin releasing those prisoners and returning to your ships. After that, we will consider you hostile and act accordingly." Rax laughed, a booming sound that echoed across the plaza. "Stupid humans. You think we fear your fancy ships? We are Craven. We've raided 100 worlds. We'll tear your—" "Time's up," David interrupted. The 3 dreadnoughts powered up their weapons. Even from the ground, Ven could see the energy building, glowing along the massive gun barrels like captured stars. Rax's laughter died. He raised his weapon toward the sky and screamed, "All ships! Attack those human vessels! Show them the price of interfering with the Craven." The Craven fleet, 20 warships strong, turned toward the human dreadnoughts and opened fire. Ven watched in horror as the sky filled with weapons fire. The Terek people had just been saved from one nightmare, only to be caught in the middle of a space battle that would probably kill them all anyway. But as the first Craven shot struck the human shields, something impossible happened. Nothing. The massive energy blasts that should have crippled the human ships just dissipated against their shields like rain on glass. Commander David's voice came across all frequencies, cold and final. "All ships, weapons free. Show them why Earth is feared." The human dreadnoughts opened fire, and the sky turned to flame. Humanity unleashed. The first human railgun shot crossed the distance between ships in less than a second. Ven watched from the ground as a rod of solid metal, accelerated to a fraction of light speed, punched straight through a Craven warship's shields as if they didn't exist. The enemy vessel exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the sky like a second sun. "Impossible," Rax whispered, staring upward. "Nothing breaks through Craven shields that fast." Another shot. Another explosion. A third Craven ship tried to turn and run, but a beam of concentrated energy from the Dreadnought Retribution sliced it in half like a knife through paper. "All ships evasive pattern," Rax screamed into his communicator. "Concentrate fire on the lead vessel." The Craven fleet scattered and reformed, pouring everything they had into the Dreadnought Titan. Dozens of plasma cannons, missile pods, and energy weapons struck the human ship in a coordinated barrage that would have vaporized any other vessel in the sector. The Titan's shields flared bright blue, absorbing the impact. When the light faded, the massive human ship hung in space completely undamaged. Commander David's voice cut through the chaos, calm as if he were ordering lunch. "Titan to all ships. They're committed now. Execute pattern Delta 7. Ven didn't understand what that meant, but the Craven clearly did. Their communication channels exploded with panic. "They're flanking us. How are they moving so fast? My targeting systems can't lock on." The 3 human dreadnoughts moved with a grace that seemed impossible for ships their size. They split apart, forming a triangle around the Craven fleet, cutting off every escape route. And from each dreadnought, dozens of smaller ships began to launch. Fighters, Mora breathed beside Ven. They brought fighters. The human fighter craft were sleek and deadly, moving through space like hunting birds. They swarmed the Craven ships, their weapons fire precise and devastating. Ven watched one small human fighter dodge 3 different attacks, spin around a Craven destroyer, and put 2 missiles straight into its engines. The destroyer went dark and began to drift. "This is fighter lead to Titan," a new human voice crackled over the channels. "Mike here. These Craven aren't much for dogfighting. Permission to disable rather than destroy." "Granted, Mike," Commander David responded. "We want prisoners and information. Take out their engines and weapons. Leave life support intact." "Copy that. You heard the man, squad. Let's clip their wings." What happened next was like watching a master artist at work. The human fighters moved in perfect coordination, targeting specific systems on each Craven ship with surgical precision. They weren't just attacking. They were dismantling the enemy fleet piece by piece. Rax stood in the plaza below, his weapon forgotten in his hands, watching his fleet being torn apart. "We are Craven," he said softly as if reminding himself. "We are the terror of this sector. We are—" "You're surrounded," a new voice said behind him. Rax spun around. The plaza was no longer empty. Dozens of armored figures had appeared as if from nowhere, their weapons trained on every Craven warrior on the ground. They wore powered armor that made them look like mechanical warriors, and their helmets showed no faces, only dark visors that reflected the burning sky. "Human Marines," one of the Terek whispered. They teleported down. The lead Marine stepped forward. He was massive in his armor, easily matching the Craven for size. His voice came through a speaker, calm and professional. "Craven forces, you are surrounded and outgunned. Drop your weapons and get on your knees. Any hostile action will be met with lethal force." For a moment, Rax looked like he might fight. His hand tightened on his weapon. Every Craven warrior in the plaza tensed. Then from orbit, one of the human Dreadnoughts fired a single shot. Not at any ship, but an empty patch of space. The beam was so powerful that it lit up the entire sky, a column of pure energy that made the planet's sun look dim by comparison. The message was clear. This is what we can do. Imagine if we aimed at you. Rax's weapon clattered to the ground. One by one, the other Craven warriors followed suit. "Smart choice," the Marine said. Within seconds, the humans had secured every enemy fighter, binding them with restraints that looked deceptively simple, but held them as firmly as steel chains. Ven stood up on shaking legs. Around him, the Terek people were doing the same, looking at their human rescuers with a mixture of awe and fear. The lead Marine approached Ven. Up close, the human was even more intimidating, a towering figure of armor and weapons. Then the helmet retracted, sliding back to reveal a woman's face. She had short dark hair, a scar across her left cheek, and eyes that were surprisingly kind. "Sir, are you the one who sent the distress call?" she asked. Ven nodded, not trusting his voice. "I'm Sergeant Lisa, Earth Marines. We're here to help. Are there any more civilians who need evacuation or medical attention?" Yes, many injured. In the shelters. We didn't expect." Ven struggled to find words. Lisa smiled, and it transformed her face from warrior to protector. "You didn't expect anyone to come. We get that a lot. But here's the thing about humans, sir. We don't ignore distress calls, ever." She turned to her squad. "Team 2 begins search and rescue operations. Team 3 set up a medical station. Move with purpose, people. We've got lives to save." The Marines scattered with practiced efficiency. Within minutes, human medics were pulling injured Terek from the rubble, treating wounds with equipment that seemed impossibly advanced. One medic, a young man named Paul, was wrapping a Terek child's broken arm while speaking softly to calm her fears. "You're going to be okay, little one," Paul said gently. "See, the bad guys are gone now. You're safe." Mora appeared at Ven's side, tears streaming down his blue face. "They came. The humans actually came. Sir?" Lisa's voice pulled Ven's attention back. "Commander David wants to speak with you. Can you walk?" Ven nodded, and Lisa led him to a communication device. The holographic image of Commander David appeared, a middle-aged human with a weathered face and gray streaks in his dark hair. "Leader Ven," David said, his voice respectful. "I apologize we couldn't arrive sooner. Are your people secure? You saved us," Ven managed. "Your ships, your warriors? We've never seen anything like it. Who are you? What is Earth?" David's expression softened slightly. "Earth is our home planet. We are relatively new to this part of space, but we've been exploring and patrolling the frontier sectors. When we received your distress call, contact," a voice shouted over the communication channel. "Titan, we're picking up massive hyperspace signatures. Multiple large vessels inbound." David's face went hard. "Numbers? 60 plus, Commander. And they're big. The lead signature is—" "Sir, it's 3 times the size of our Dreadnoughts." Ven felt his blood turn cold. He knew what this meant. "Gorth," he whispered. David looked at him sharply. "Who?" "Warlord Gorth," Ven said, his voice shaking. "He commands the entire Craven fleet in this sector. He's destroyed hundreds of colonies. If he's coming here—" Ven couldn't finish the sentence. Rax, still bound on his knees nearby, started laughing. "You stupid humans. You think you've won? You killed a few of Gorth's scouts and now you've brought his wrath down on this entire planet. He's coming with his full war fleet. Your fancy ships will burn and will feast on... Lisa's armored fist connected with Rax's jaw, cutting off his words. Prisoners are to remain silent, she said calmly. David's jaw tightened. How long until they arrive? 3 hours, sir. Maybe 4. For a long moment, David stared at something off-screen. Then he looked back at Ven. Leader Ven, I need you to tell me everything you know about Gorth and his fleet. We have 3 hours to prepare? Prepare? Ven shook his head. Commander David, you must leave. Take your ships and go. Gorth has over 60 warships. He's crushed entire battle groups. You've done enough. You saved my people. Please don't die here for us. David's expression didn't change. With respect, Leader Ven, that's not how Earth does things. We don't start fights, but we finish them. And we sure as hell don't abandon people who need our help. He turned to someone off-screen. Get me Admiral Robert. Emergency channel. And activate the Dreadnought protocol. Sir, his communications officer said hesitantly. The Dreadnought protocol? Are you sure? David's smile was cold and dangerous. I'm sure. Gorth wants a fight. Let's give him one he'll never forget. The hologram flickered off. Lisa placed a reassuring hand on Ven's shoulder. Don't worry, sir. The commander knows what he's doing. But 60 ship, Ven protested. Then it's a fair fight, Lisa said with a grin that reminded Ven of a predator showing its teeth. You're about to learn something about humans, Leader Ven. When someone threatens innocent people, we don't run. We multiply. In orbit above, the 3 human dreadnoughts began to change their formation. New energy signatures bloomed across their hulls as weapon systems came online that hadn't been activated during the first battle. And across the vast distances of space, a message raced toward Earth at faster than light speed. The message was simple. Dreadnought protocol activated. All available ships converge on Valon 7. Civilians in danger. Expect heavy resistance. The response came back in less than a minute. And when Ven heard it, he understood why the humans seemed so calm in the face of impossible odds. This is Admiral Robert. 12 dreadnoughts are inbound. ETA 3 hours. Hold position. We're coming. Ven looked up at the sky where the human ships hung in orbit like guardian angels made of metal and fury. For the first time since the Craven had arrived, he felt something other than fear. He felt hope. The Dreadnought Protocol. The next 3 hours passed in a blur of activity. Ven watched in amazement as the humans transformed his broken colony into a fortress. Human engineers worked alongside Terek volunteers, setting up shield generators and defensive positions. Marine Sergeant Lisa coordinated the evacuation of non-combatants to underground shelters that the humans had reinforced with their own materials. We're not leaving, Ven told Commander David during their second conversation. This is our home. We'll fight for it. David studied him through the hologram. Leader Ven, your people aren't warriors. No offense, but we know. Ven interrupted quietly. We're miners and traders. But we can still help. We know this planet better than anyone. We can spot terrain, carry supplies, treat wounded. Please, Commander, let us stand with you. David was silent for a moment, then nodded. All right. Sergeant Lisa will coordinate with you. But the moment things get dangerous, your people get to the shelters. Deal? Deal. Within the hour, Terek volunteers were working side by side with human soldiers. A young Terek named Kev helped Marines position ammunition crates. Mora worked in the medical station, learning basic first aid from Medic Paul. The cultural barrier between the species seemed to dissolve in the face of shared purpose. Your people, Kev said to Lisa as they worked. You fight like this for strangers? Lisa paused, wiping sweat from her forehead. We fight like this for people who need help. Doesn't matter if we just met you. That distress call? That made you our responsibility. But why? Kev pressed. What do you gain? Lisa looked at him with those kind eyes that had seen too much violence. Peace of mind, kid. The knowledge that we didn't turn our backs when someone needed us. That's worth more than any profit. In orbit, the 3 human dreadnoughts had repositioned themselves in a defensive formation around the planet. Fighter squadrons ran patrol patterns while the massive ships charged their weapons and reinforced their shields. Pilot Mike sat in his cockpit, running system checks for the 3rd time. Around him, his squadron did the same. They were ready. They'd been ready. All fighters, this is Mike, he said over the squadron channel. Listen up. In about an hour, we're going to face the biggest fight any of us have seen. The Kraven are bringing everything they've got. But remember, we're not just fighting for Earth today. We're fighting for those people down there who called for help. We're fighting to show the galaxy that humanity keeps its promises. So let's make it count. Ura, came the response from 24 pilots. On the ground, Ven stood on a hill overlooking the colony with Commander David, who had shuttled down personally to oversee the defense. The human commander looked tired but determined. "They're here," David said quietly, checking his tactical display. "Hyperspace signatures incoming." The sky tore open. 63 Kraven warships emerged from hyperspace in a coordinated jump that spoke of brutal efficiency. They spread across the orbital space like a plague, each vessel scarred and decorated with the hulls of previous victims. And at the center of the fleet hung a ship that made Ven's blood freeze. It was a monster of metal and weapons, easily 3 times the size of any human dreadnought. Its hull was painted with the symbols of hundreds of destroyed colonies. "That's Gorth's flagship," Ven whispered. "The Devastator." "Impressive," David admitted. "Ugly as sin, but impressive." A voice boomed across all communication channels, deep and filled with malice. "Humans, I'm Warlord Gorth. You have killed my raiders and stolen my prisoners. For this insult, I will destroy your ships, enslave your people, and add your planet to my list of conquests." David activated his communicator with a casual press of a button. "Warlord Gorth, this is Commander David. Those prisoners were innocent civilians, and your raiders were murderers. We stopped a crime in progress. If you have a problem with that, you're welcome to take it up with Earth's legal system. We're happy to arrest you too." Gorth's laughter was like grinding stone. "Arrest me? Little human, I have conquered this sector. No one stands against the Kraven. Your 3 ships will—" The sky tore open again. This time it wasn't Kraven ships that emerged. 12 massive human dreadnoughts punched through space itself, appearing in perfect formation behind Gorth's fleet. They were identical to David's ships but carried different names across their hulls. Thunder, Justice, Vengeance, Storm, Fury, Liberty, Victory, Triumph, Defiance, Guardian, Sentinel, and leading them all, the flagship sovereign Admiral Robert's voice cut across Gorth's communication like a blade. "Warlord Gorth, this is Admiral Robert of the Earth Navy. You're surrounded. Power down your weapons and prepare to surrender, or we will do it for you." For the first time, Ven heard uncertainty in Gorth's voice. 15 ships? You bring 15 ships against my fleet of 60? You're still outnumbered 4-1. "Yes," Robert said simply. "Should we call for more backup?" "We're trying to keep this fair." Gorth's roar of rage shook the communication channels. "All ships, attack! Destroy the humans." The Kraven fleet surged forward like a wave of death. 63 warships against 15. On paper, it should have been a massacre. It was. Just not the massacre Gorth expected. "All ships." Admiral Robert's voice was ice cold. "Weapons free. Show them the price of threatening innocence." What happened next would be spoken of in every corner of the galaxy for generations. The human dreadnoughts didn't just fight. They dominated. Their weapons fired with impossible precision, each shot finding its target despite the chaos of battle. Their shields absorbed damage that should have destroyed them. And their coordination was flawless, as if all 15 ships shared a single mind. Mike and his fighter squadron tore through Kraven formations like wolves among sheep. "That's 3 for me," he shouted. "Who's keeping count?" "Stop showing off, Mike," another pilot called back. "Some of us are trying to work here." On the Sovereign, Admiral Robert watched the tactical display with satisfaction. "Target the Devastator's engines. I want Gorth alive. Sir, he's moving to engage us directly. Let him come." The massive Kraven flagship bore down on the Sovereign, all weapons firing. It was a display of raw firepower that should have overwhelmed any vessel. The Sovereign's shields flared but held firm. "Now," Robert said calmly. "Railguns, full salvo." 6 railgun rounds struck the Devastator in rapid succession, each one punching through its shields and armor. The massive ship's engines exploded, leaving it dead in space. Around the battlefield, the story was the same. Kraven ships burned or drifted helpless. Some tried to run, but the human ships were faster. Within 30 minutes of the battle starting, it was over. 40 Kraven ships destroyed, 23 disabled and captured. 0 human casualties. On the ground, the Terek people stood in stunned silence, watching the sky burn with the debris of the Kraven fleet. "Impossible," Mora whispered. "They were outnumbered 4-1. Numbers don't mean much, Lisa said beside him, when you're fighting for something that matters. Admiral Roberts' voice came over David's communicator. Commander, you have control of the ground situation? Yes, sir. Colony is secure. Prisoners in custody. Good work. I'm sending Marines to collect Gorth. This one's going to trial on Earth. I think the whole galaxy needs to see what happens to warlords who prey on the innocent. David smiled. Copy that, Admiral. Hours later, after the prisoners had been secured and the wounded treated, Ven stood with David on that same hill. The human commander looked exhausted but satisfied. Why? Ven asked the question that had been burning in his mind. Why risk so much for people you don't know? David turned to look at him. Because someone sent a distress call. Because people needed help. That's reason enough. He paused. You know, there's an old saying on Earth. We're all just walking each other home. We're all in this universe together, Leader Ven. When someone falls, you help them up. When someone's in danger, you stand with them. That's not being a hero. That's just being decent. Tears rolled down Ven's blue face. My people will never forget this, never. Then do me a favor, David said with a tired smile. Tell others. Tell them about today. Tell them that Earth answers distress calls. That we protect those who can't protect themselves. Maybe if enough people know, the predators will think twice before attacking the innocent. I will, Ven promised. The whole galaxy will know. And he kept that promise. Within weeks, the story of Velon 7 spread across every trade route and communication network. The tale of how humans answered a desperate distress call from strangers, fought against impossible odds, and refused to abandon those who needed help. The Terek became Earth's first formal allies in that sector. Other peaceful species emboldened by humanity's example reached out. An embassy was established on the Terek homeworld. Trade agreements were signed. Cultural exchanges began, and in the dark corners of space where pirates and raiders had once operated freely, a new fear took root. A warning passed from ship to ship in frightened whispers. Avoid the human-protected zones. They don't negotiate. They don't retreat, and they never ever abandon their own. On Velon 7, a monument was erected in the center of the rebuilt colony. It showed a human dreadnought descending from the sky, and beneath it, words carved in both Terek and human languages. They heard our call. They came, they stood. We are forever grateful. Commander David attended the dedication ceremony 6 months later. Ven embraced him like a brother, and the two stood together looking at the memorial. You changed our world, Ven said softly. David shook his head. We just answered a distress call. It's what anyone should do. But it's what humans always do, Ven replied. And that makes all the difference. Across the galaxy, on 1,000 different worlds, species looked up at the stars and wondered about these strange warriors from Earth. These humans who fought not for conquest or profit, but for an ideal as simple as it was powerful. No one fights alone, not while humanity can hear their call. And in the darkness of space, on patrol ships along the frontier, human crews kept their communication channels open, waiting and listening, ready to answer the next distress call. Because that's what humans do. The end.